The day I handed my bakery over to my sister, the scent of vanilla and cinnamon couldn't disguise the tension in the air. I stood in what used to be my kitchen, Gemma's kitchen now, watching her struggle with my grandmother's apple turnover recipe, the same one that had turned Sweet Dreams Bakery into a success 3 years ago. I'm Valerie, and until yesterday, I was living my dream. Now, I'm watching it crumble like an overbaked cookie. Val, sweetie, this is for the best, Mom said, resting her hand on my shoulder. I shrugged it off and focused on Gemma's attempts to recreate my signature pastry. The dough was too thick, the apple filling too runny. Even from a distance, I could tell she'd overdone the cinnamon. Gemma has the business skills this bakery needs, Dad added, his voice carrying that familiar authoritative tone. With her background and your recipes, this place will thrive. I turned to face them, forcing myself to stay calm. My recipes aren't part of the deal. A heavy silence followed. Gemma froze mid-fold, apple filling spilling onto the counter. What do you mean? She asked, her perfectly manicured nails now sticky with filling. The deal was for the bakery, not my recipes. Those are mine. I grabbed my recipe book from its usual spot near the industrial mixer. They've always been mine. Don't be ridiculous, Mom snapped. Those recipes belong to the bakery. You can't just. Actually, I can. I hugged the worn, leather-bound book to my chest. I never included them as part of the business assets. Check the paperwork you had me sign. Dad's face turned red. This is absurd. Valerie, you're acting like a child. A child? I laughed bitterly. I built this place from nothing. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, testing recipes until my feet ached and my hands were raw. And you two convinced me to hand it over to Gemma because she has an MBA? Val, please. Gemma stepped forward, wiping her hands on her white apron. We're family. We can make this work. Family? I spat the word out like it was poison. Family doesn't manipulate each other into giving up their dreams. Family doesn't. The bell above the front door rang, interrupting me. I took a deep breath, pasted on a professional smile, and walked out to greet Mrs. Peterson, my most loyal customer. Valerie, darling, those apple turnovers. I'm sorry, Mrs. Peterson, we're having some issues today. I glanced at the kitchen, where Gemma was still struggling with the dough. Maybe next week? Mrs. Peterson's face dropped, but I was counting on them for my bridge club. Your turnovers are the only reason they let me host. I'm sure Gemma will have something wonderful for you, Mom interjected, stepping beside me. She's taking over the bakery. Valerie is moving on to other opportunities. The look of confusion on Mrs. Peterson's face mirrored the turmoil in my chest. But Valerie's turnovers won't be available anymore? I finished, my voice cracking. I'm sorry. As Mrs. Peterson left empty-handed, I glanced back at Gemma through the kitchen window. The dough was wrong again, too tough, not enough butter. She'd never get it right because she didn't understand the secret, the folding technique, the precise temperature of the butter, the pinch of nutmeg that no one expected. This is crazy, Dad declared, running his hands through his gray hair. Valerie, you have to help her. The morning rush starts soon. I grabbed my purse from behind the counter, tucked my recipe book safely inside, and headed for the door. No, Dad, I don't. Not anymore. Where are you going? Mom called after me, panic in her voice. Home, and maybe I'll call April about that job offer at her cafe. I paused at the door, taking one last look at my dream, the vintage display cases I'd restored, the hand-painted sign in the window, the walls I'd chosen in warm honey tones. Good luck with the business plan, Gemma. I'm sure your MBA will help you figure it out. As I walked away from Sweet Dreams Bakery, the morning sun warming my face, I heard the unmistakable sound of a baking sheet hitting the floor, followed by Gemma's frustrated cry. A small, vindictive part of me smiled. They wanted the bakery? Fine. But my recipes, my grandmother's legacy, my years of perfecting each measurement, those were coming with me. Let them figure out how to run a bakery without the heart and soul of it. Some lessons need to be learned the hard way. 2 months into working at April's cafe, I was starting to feel like myself again. The morning rush had just ended, and I was wiping down the counter when April emerged from the kitchen, grinning from ear to ear. Your lemon squares are officially our bestseller, she announced, waving a sales report. We sold out before noon again. I smiled, but before I could respond, the bell above the door rang. My stomach dropped as Harper Dixon started in, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Well, if it isn't the fallen baker herself, Harper said, her red lips curling into a smirk. How the mighty have fallen. What do you want, Harper? I kept wiping the counter, refusing to look at her. Oh, just checking out the competition, though I suppose you're hardly competition anymore. She leaned against the counter. I drove past Sweet Dreams this morning. Quite the change in clientele. Or should I say, lack of clientele? April stepped forward, her usual cheer replaced by a hard edge. We're actually quite busy here, Harper, unless you're planning to order something. Actually, I have a proposition for you, Valerie. Harper pulled out a business card. Your sister's doing an excellent job of running that bakery into the ground. I'll buy you out, your recipes, your techniques, everything. Name your price. I stopped wiping and finally looked up. My recipes aren't for sale. Don't be an idiot, Harper scoffed. Everyone knows those were your grandmother's recipes. They made Sweet Dreams what it was. With my resources and your recipes, we could. I said no. I crumpled her business card and threw it in the trash. My grandmother taught me more than recipes. She taught me about loyalty. Loyalty? Harper laughed. To the family that stabbed you in the back? Please. The door chimed again, and a tall man in a chef's coat walked in. I recognized him immediately, Mario, the owner of the Italian restaurant down the street. He'd been a regular. How's everything been since I started working here? Mario asked, glancing back and forth between Harper and me. Everything's fine, Harper replied, standing up straight. I was just leaving. Think about my offer, Valerie. Loyalty doesn't pay the bills. As Harper clicked away, Mario moved into the space she had just vacated at the counter. I couldn't help but overhear their conversation. You're the former owner of Sweet Dreams? He asked. I nodded, suddenly feeling the urge to rearrange the coffee cups on the counter. I used to stop by Sweet Dreams for my morning pastries, but lately, he shook his head. Let's just say I've been coming here instead. The usual? April asked as she prepared a cappuccino cup. Actually, Mario cleared his throat. I came to talk business. My restaurant's dessert menu needs some work. I've been sampling your lemon squares, Valerie. They're amazing. My cheeks flushed with pride. Thanks, but I'm not really. I'm not here to buy your recipes, he quickly clarified. I'm suggesting a partnership, your desserts at my restaurant. We'd split the profits, and you'd keep full control of your recipes. April let out a delighted squeal from behind me. Val, that's perfect. You could use my kitchen during off hours to prep. I hesitated, thinking about the stack of bills on my kitchen table. Working at the cafe was fine, but it wasn't paying the rent. I needed to consider my options. Of course, Mario said, pulling out a business card, an actual business card. Unlike Harper's deceitful offer. Take your time, but just so you know, I've heard whispers that Sweet Dreams isn't doing so well. Your sister tried to convince me to keep ordering from them, but, he shrugged, it's just not the same anymore. After he left, April grabbed my shoulders, looking at me with hopeful eyes. Please tell me you're considering this. It's the perfect chance to get back on your feet. I don't know, I sighed, watching as my parents' car pulled up across the street in front of Sweet Dreams. A part of me feels guilty. After all, they're family. Family who betrayed you, April pointed out. I glanced through the window, seeing my parents rushing into the bakery. Moments later, raised voices echoed across the street. I could make out words like disaster and losing money. They made their choice, April said softly. Now it's your turn. I pulled Mario's card from my apron pocket, feeling its embossed surface under my thumb. Maybe it was time to stop watching my past crumble and finally start building something new. The bell above the door chimed, and Mrs. Peterson walked in, her face lighting up when she saw me. Valerie, I heard you were here. Please tell me you're baking again. I exchanged a glance with April, who nodded encouragingly. Actually, Mrs. Peterson, I might be starting something new. How would you like to be my first taste tester? Sometimes the best revenge isn't about watching others fail, it's about not letting them stop you from succeeding. Mario's dessert partnership grew faster than I had anticipated. After a month of supplying his restaurant, the word spread quickly. Soon, I was juggling orders from 3 different restaurants while still working at April's cafe. Something had to change. You need your own space, April told me one morning, watching as I frantically prepped another batch of tiramisu. My kitchen's too small for both of us now. The bell rang, and Gemma walked in. My hands froze mid-whisk. Can we talk? She asked, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Please, April said, squeezing my shoulder before disappearing into the back to leave us alone. Gemma slumped onto a bar stool, looking a far cry from the confident MBA graduate who had taken over my bakery. The bank called yesterday, she whispered. We're 3 months behind on payments. I kept whisking harder than necessary. That sounds like a you problem. Val, please, I'm drowning here. Just give me the apple turnover recipe, that's all I'm asking for. Mrs. Peterson's Bridge Club used to order 3 dozen every week, and now they order them from me. I continued pouring the mixture into serving cups for Mario's restaurant. Gemma's face crumpled. Mom and Dad were wrong. Okay, is that what you want to hear? They were wrong about everything, but if the bakery fails, they'll lose their retirement savings. I slammed the whisk into the sink. Don't you dare guilt me about their retirement. They made this choice. What's going on here? Harper's voice sliced through the tension as she sauntered in. Family reunion? Get out, Harper, I snapped. Now, Harper smiled, pulling up a seat next to Gemma. I'm just here as a concerned neighbor. Word on the street is Sweet Dreams is going under. My offer still stands, Valerie, though the price has gone down considering the circumstances. Gemma whipped around. What offer? Oh, didn't your sister tell you? I offered to buy her recipes. I could have saved your bakery, but she turned me down. Something about family loyalty. Harper's laugh grated on my nerves. You did what? Gemma jumped to her feet, knocking her stool over. You'd sell our family recipes to her but not help your own sister? They're my recipes. I slammed my hands onto the counter. Grandma taught them to me. I spent years perfecting them. Want to talk about family? Where was family when you, Mom, and Dad took everything I built? Ladies, April's voice rang out. Take it outside. You're scaring the customers. I hadn't even noticed the small crowd of morning regulars watching our confrontation like it was a tennis match. Gemma grabbed her purse, tears streaming down her face. Fine, keep your precious recipes. I hope they keep you warm at night while your family loses everything. She stormed out, nearly bumping into Mario, who had just entered. Harper stood up, smoothing her designer skirt. Think about my offer, Valerie. Family drama is so messy. I'm offering you a clean break. Once she left, Mario cautiously approached the counter. Bad time? Perfect time, actually. I wiped my hands on my apron. Remember that empty storefront you mentioned, 2 doors down from your restaurant? Is it still available? Mario's face lit up. It is. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I'm done hiding in other people's kitchens. I pulled out my grandmother's recipe book. It's time to build something new. April squealed from behind the counter. I knew it. You're opening your own place, Mario exclaimed. Only if the numbers add up, I replied, already running through the startup costs in my head. And if you want me to help, April, I'll need someone who understands the business side of things. Unlike some people. April grinned. I earned my business experience, not just hung a degree on a wall. Mario pulled out his phone. I know the building owner. Let me give him a call. As he stepped away to make the call, I noticed Gemma trudging back toward Sweet Dreams. My mom was standing outside, and I could see them arguing on the sidewalk. A part of me wanted to rush over and fix everything with a few recipes and a hug, but then I remembered the day they'd taken my dream away, how they'd planned everything without me, thinking they were doing the right thing. Some wounds can't be healed with just a recipe. Good news came when Mario returned, grinning. The owner's willing to meet tomorrow, says he's a fan of your tiramisu. April hugged me tightly. This is it, Val, your fresh start. I glanced at my reflection in the cafe window, seeing something I hadn't in months, hope. Maybe the sweetest form of revenge isn't serving it cold, but serving it with love, one perfectly baked pastry at a time. Let's do this, I said, holding my recipe book close. It's time to show this town what real baking tastes like. Opening day at Second Chance's Bakery was a dream come true, with a line stretching around the block. April had worked her social media magic, and Mario had spread the word through his restaurant connections. The smell of fresh pastries filled the air as I arranged the display cases, my hands shaking slightly with excitement. They're here for you, Mario said, bringing in another tray of freshly baked croissants. Not your family name, not your old bakery, they're here for you. The bell above the door chimed as Mrs. Peterson made her way to the front of the line. I simply couldn't wait another minute, she said, grinning. My Bridge Club will be thrilled to have your apple turnovers back. First customer gets a free box, I said, packing up a dozen warm turnovers for her. The morning rush was everything I'd dreamed of and more. April manned the register while I kept the display cases stocked, falling into the familiar rhythm of a busy bakery. Then the bell rang again, and I heard my mother's voice cutting through the chatter. So, this is why you wouldn't help us, she said, standing in the doorway with Dad. You were planning this all along. The customers fell silent. April took a step forward, but I gently stopped her with a touch. I've got this. I said, wiping my hands on my apron. Mom, Dad, would you like to order something? Dad's face reddened. Your sister's about to lose everything, and you're opening a competing business? Actually, Mario stepped from the kitchen. Valerie's not competing. She's creating something new, something honest. Dad narrowed his eyes. And who are you? Mario Zimmerman, co-owner of Bellin Restaurant, he said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. Someone who believes in Valerie's talent. My mother's eyes widened as she glanced between us. You're dating him? Is that what this is about? No, Mom, I said. This is about me finally doing what I should have done months ago, standing up for myself. Your sister's bakery is being foreclosed on next week, Dad said, his voice hard. Does that mean nothing to you? Before I could answer, Harper walked in, her presence cutting through the tension. Well, isn't this cozy? The prodigal daughter's big comeback. Get out, Harper, Mario and I said in unison. Oh, I don't think so, Harper said with a sweet smile, pulling out a stack of papers. I just bought Sweet Dreams debt from the bank. The bakery belongs to me now. The room seemed to spin. You what? Harper smiled wider. I thought you'd be willing to trade your recipes for your sister's freedom. Seems fair, doesn't it? Don't you dare, Mario started, but I squeezed his hand. Let me handle this. I walked around the counter and faced Harper. You want my recipes? Fine, but let's see if you can handle them. I grabbed an apron from the hook. Right now, you and me in the kitchen. If you can recreate my apple turnovers perfectly, the recipes are yours. Harper's smile faltered. Don't be ridiculous. I'm a businesswoman, not a baker. Exactly. I turned to my parents. That's what none of you understood. These recipes aren't just written instructions. They're years of experience, knowing how the ingredients work together, understanding when something is right. Val, Gemma's voice came from the doorway. She looked exhausted. I'm sorry for everything. The shop went quiet as Gemma walked up to the counter, picked up an apple turnover, and took a bite. Tears welled up in her eyes. It's exactly like Grandma used to make, she whispered. Because Grandma taught me more than just recipes, I said. She taught me that success isn't about business plans or degrees, it's about passion and dedication. Harper scoffed. How touching, but I still own Sweet Dreams debt. Actually, Mario pulled out his phone. You don't. I just got confirmation from my lawyer. Second Chances LLC bought that debt at a very reasonable price, considering the bakery's current state. Harper's face flushed red. You can't. I can, I interrupted, and I did. Now get out of my shop. As Harper stormed out, I turned to my family. Sweet Dreams isn't gone, but things need to change. What are you suggesting? Dad asked, his anger softening into curiosity. A fresh start for all of us, I said, looking at Gemma. You want to learn the recipes? Really learn them? I'll teach you, but no more shortcuts, no more entitlement. We do this right. Gemma nodded, wiping her tears. I'd like that. The customers broke into applause, and Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Just like one of those cooking shows, she sniffled, but better. Mario pulled me close and kissed my temple. You're amazing, you know that? Looking around at my new bakery, at April's proud smile, at my family's humbled expressions, and at the long line of customers, I finally felt at peace. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in getting even, it's in rising above. Teaching Gemma wasn't easy. 3 weeks into our new arrangement, she still couldn't get the apple turnover dough right. It's too sticky again, she groaned, flour on her face. We were in the kitchen at Second Chances, after hours, and the counter looked like a disaster. You're rushing it, I said, watching her struggle. The dough needs time to rest between folds. Time we don't have, she snapped. The morning rush at Sweet Dreams starts in 6 hours, and we have nothing to sell. I stepped back, crossing my arms. Maybe it's time we shut Sweet Dreams down for a couple of weeks while you learn the right way. We can't. Gemma's voice cracked. There's something I haven't told you, something Mom and Dad have kept hidden. Before she could continue, Mario burst through the kitchen door, his face pale. Val, you need to see this. He held up his phone, showing a local news website. The headline made my stomach sink. Local bakery owner accused of health code violations. Harper, I muttered, scanning the article. She's claiming to have found rats at Sweet Dreams when she inspected it during the debt purchase. It's a lie, Gemma said quickly. She's making it up. Of course she is, April added from the doorway, but the health department has to investigate any complaint, and they'll likely shut Sweet Dreams down for the inspection. Gemma slumped against the counter. leaving a flower handprint on her black pants. That's not even the worst of it. Mom and Dad, they took out a second mortgage on their house to keep Sweet Dreams going. If we close, even just for a week, they'll lose everything. I paused, finally understanding the extent of their desperation. Mario placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. What do you want to do? I looked at the mess of failed dough on the counter, then at my sister's dejected face. Making a decision, I grabbed my recipe book and a pen. Here, I said, scribbling quickly, this is the real apple turnover recipe. Gemma's eyes widened. But you said. I know what I said, I interrupted, but this isn't about teaching you anymore. I ripped out the page. Take this to Sweet Dreams. Make a batch for tomorrow. Val, no, April protested. She needs to learn it the right way. And she will, I replied firmly, but right now, Sweet Dreams needs something to sell during the health inspection. Something perfect. Gemma reached for the recipe with trembling hands, but I held it back. On one condition, I said, you tell Mom and Dad everything. No more secrets, no more hidden debts. We face this as a family, okay? She whispered as she took the recipe, but what if I mess it up? I glanced at my watch. It's only 9. I'll help you make the first batch. Mario grabbed his keys. I'll drive you both. When we arrived at Sweet Dreams, Mom and Dad were still arguing over paperwork. They fell silent when we walked in. Valerie? Mom looked between us. What's going on? Damage control, I said, pulling out mixing bowls. Harper's trying to shut us down with false health code violations. But first, Gemma has something to tell you. As Gemma confessed about the mounting debts and Harper's threats, I began measuring ingredients. The familiar motions helped calm me, even in a kitchen that no longer felt like mine. Why didn't you tell us how bad it was? Dad's voice was soft. Why didn't you tell me about the second mortgage? Gemma shot back. Because we were too proud to admit we were wrong, I said, cutting cold butter into flour. But that stops now. Mom, start cleaning everything. Dad, call your friend at the health department. Warn them about Harper's lies. Gemma, watch what I'm doing. Really watch. For the next 2 hours, we worked together. I showed Gemma the delicate art of making perfect dough, the precise way to fold it, the right temperature to use. Mom cleaned the kitchen until it gleamed, and Dad made calls to everyone he knew who could help. When the first batch of turnovers came out of the oven, golden and flawless, Mrs. Peterson appeared at the back door. I saw the lights on, she said, sniffing the air, and I saw that awful article. The Bridge Club's ready to testify about the quality of this place if needed. That won't be necessary, came a voice from behind her. Harper stood there, looking furious. You're supposed to be closed during a health inspection. There won't be an inspection, Dad said, hanging up his phone. The health department is aware of your false claims. They're launching an investigation into you. Harper's face turned from red to white. You can't prove anything. Actually, Mario stepped forward, holding up his phone. I recorded your entire conversation with Val about buying the debt and trying to steal her recipes. Attempted extortion is a serious crime. As Harper stormed off, Mom turned to me, tears in her eyes. We don't deserve your help. No, I said, pulling another perfect batch from the oven. Family isn't about deserving, it's about forgiveness, and maybe a few secret recipes. We need to talk about expansion, Mario said one morning, 6 weeks after the Harper incident. We were in the kitchen of Second Chances, preparing for another busy day. Expansion? I almost dropped the mixing bowl I was holding. We've barely been open 3 months, and we're already turning people away. April chimed in, waving her tablet. And the food critic from the city paper is coming next week, if they give us a good review. The kitchen door burst open, and Gemma rushed in, holding a stack of papers. Emergency family meeting, now. I'll handle the front, April said, giving my shoulder a squeeze as she left. Gemma spread the papers across the prep table. Remember that investment company that approached Sweet Dreams last year? The one I turned down because I thought we could manage on our own? I nodded, scanning the documents. My heart stopped when I saw the numbers. They're back, Gemma continued, but they're not interested in Sweet Dreams anymore. They want to franchise Second Chances. Mario whistled low. That's a lot of zeros. They want to open 5 locations across the city, Gemma explained, using Val's recipes, her branding, everything. No, I said immediately, I'm not giving up control of my recipes again. That's the best part. Gemma pulled out another document. They want you to keep full creative control. I'd handle the business side, reporting directly to you. I stared at my sister. You'd work for me? With you, she corrected. Look, I've learned a lot these past weeks. I'm good at business strategy, marketing, numbers, but you're the heart of this operation. We could be an amazing team if we stop working against each other and start working together. The kitchen door opened again, and Mom poked her head in. Your father's having chest pains. Everything stopped. What? He's okay, Mom said quickly. We're on our way to the doctor now, but the stress of almost losing the house, the bakery drama, it's taking a toll. After they left, I slumped against the counter. I thought things were getting better. They are, Gemma insisted. Sweet Dreams is stable now that we're working together, but Mom and Dad aren't getting any younger. This franchise deal, it could set them up for retirement. Set all of us up. Mario picked up the contract. It's a solid offer, Val, but it's your decision. What if everything falls apart again? I murmured. Then we'll face it together, Gemma reassured me. No more secrets, remember? The kitchen door swung open once more, and Mrs. Peterson hobbled in, looking frazzled. The bridge club's being evicted, she announced. The community center is being sold. Where will we play? Where will we have your turnovers? I glanced at the contract, then at Mrs. Peterson, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. What if we didn't just franchise? I suggested slowly. What if we reimagined Sweet Dreams as something new? A cafe-style community space with meeting rooms upstairs? Gemma's eyes lit up. The investment could cover the renovation costs. We could keep the original location's charm but make it more versatile. And Second Chances could provide all the baked goods, Mario added. It's a perfect fit. Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands. We could have real tea service for the bridge club. I grabbed a pen but paused. Gemma, are you sure about this? Working together, for real this time? More sure than I was about that MBA, she grinned. Plus, someone's got to stop you from working yourself into the ground. Those 3 a.m. baking sessions can't be good for you. Speaking of health, Mario interrupted. Let's go check on Dad at the hospital. We found Dad arguing with a nurse about getting back to work. He stopped mid-sentence when we entered. What's going on? He asked. The morning rush. April's got it covered, I said, pulling out the contract. We've got something to discuss. As we explained the transformation plan for Sweet Dreams and the franchise idea, Dad's heart monitor remained steady. By the time we finished, he was smiling. Your grandmother would be proud, he said softly, not just of the baking, but of how you've both grown. Does this mean you're finally going to retire and let us take over? Mom asked, trying to sound stern but failing. Well, Dad adjusted his hospital gown. Maybe it's time to step back, but I'm still taste testing everything. Deal, Gemma and I said in unison. Later that evening, as Mario and I were closing up Second Chances, he pulled me close. You know what this means, right? We'll need to expand this kitchen too, I said, looking around at the small space, remembering how it felt to start over. Change is scary, but necessary. He finished for me, kissing my flour-dusted cheek, like letting dough rise or letting go of old hurts. I added, watching Gemma lock up Sweet Dreams across the street. Sometimes the best recipes aren't just about ingredients, they're about knowing when to hold on and when to let things evolve into something new. The day of Sweet Dreams' grand reopening as Sweet Dreams Community Cafe brought unexpected drama. I was arranging pastries in the new display case when Harper stormed in, waving a newspaper. What is this? She demanded, slamming the paper on the counter. The headline read Local Bakery Empire Expands, Sisters Unite Business Savvy with Culinary Artistry. It's called Success, Gemma said, stepping out of the new tea room. You should try earning it honestly sometime. This was supposed to be my territory. Harper's voice rose, catching the attention of the early customers. I was going to own this whole block. Is there a problem here? Mario appeared at my side, while April quietly guided customers toward the cafe area. The problem, Harper pointed at me, is that you're all going to regret this. I have connections, like the health inspector you tried to bribe. Dad's voice boomed from the entrance. He looked better than he had in weeks, although Mom still hovered anxiously beside him. Or the bank manager who reported your attempted extortion. Harper's face went from red to white. You can't prove. Actually, a man in a suit stepped forward from the growing crowd of customers. We can. I'm Detective Roberts. We've been investigating complaints about your business practices for months. I watched as Harper's carefully constructed persona crumbled. This isn't fair, she shouted. I worked for years to. To what? I interrupted. To steal other people's hard work? To destroy family businesses? Speaking of business, Gemma added, pulling out her tablet. You might want to check your stock prices. Your investors aren't too pleased with the police investigation. Harper's phone buzzed as she checked it. Her eyes widened in horror. Without another word, she turned and fled, almost knocking over Mrs. Peterson, who was entering with her bridge club. Oh my, Mrs. Peterson clutched her chest dramatically. Was that dreadful woman causing trouble again? Not anymore, Detective Roberts smiled, tipping his hat before following Harper out. Well then, Mom clapped her hands. Shall we get this reopening started properly? The new cafe was everything we'd hoped for. The main floor housed the bakery and cafe, while upstairs had been transformed into community rooms. The Bridge Club immediately claimed their favorite spot, complete with a dedicated tea service station. Try these, I said, bringing them a fresh batch of apple turnovers. Gemma made them herself. Mrs. Peterson took a bite and closed her eyes in delight. Perfect, just like yours, dear. Because she finally learned to be patient with the dough. I smiled at my sister, who was showing Dad how to use the new point-of-sale system. Val, Mario called from the kitchen. The news crew is here for the interview. Both of you go, Mom insisted when I looked at Gemma. This is your story to tell. As the camera crew set up, Mario squeezed my hand, ready to show the world what happens when family works together instead of against each other. The interview started with basic questions about the expansion plan but soon turned personal. There were rumors of a family feud, the reporter said. What changed? Gemma and I exchanged glances. We learned that success tastes better when shared, I said. And that sometimes the best business strategy is simply being honest with each other, Gemma added. Plus, April chimed in from behind the counter. It helps when the local culinary mafia gets caught trying to sabotage you. Everyone laughed, breaking the tension. The reporter then asked for a demonstration. I showed her how to fold a turnover as Gemma explained our community-centered business model. One last question, the reporter said, flour dusting her nose. What's next for the sisters behind the sweet success? Before we could answer, Dad called out from the register. They're going to let their old man retire in peace. Eventually, Mom corrected, handing him his heart meds with a glass of water. Actually, Mario said, stepping forward and taking my hand, we might have another announcement coming soon. He patted his pocket, and my heart skipped. Really? April squealed, nearly dropping a tray of cookies. Cut that last part, the reporter told her cameraman with a wink. Save it for the wedding announcement. As the crew packed up, I looked around at my family, Mom fussing over Dad's medication, Gemma teaching Mrs. Peterson's granddaughter how to steep tea, April and Mario bickering over wedding cake flavors before I had even agreed. You know, Gemma said, joining me at the counter, I think Grandma knew exactly what she was doing when she only taught you those recipes. What do you mean? She knew you'd be the one to bring us all together. Gemma nudged my shoulder, even if we had to fall apart first. The afternoon sun streamed through the cafe windows, catching the gold lettering that read Sweet Dreams Community Cafe, where family recipes build community. Below it, in smaller letters, was a Second Chances partnership. Sometimes, the sweetest victories aren't about proving others wrong. They're about proving to yourself that forgiveness is the secret ingredient to success. You can't bake your own wedding cake, April protested, grabbing the recipe book from my hands. It's bad luck or something. Actually, Gemma called from behind her laptop, I think that's wedding dresses, not cakes. We were sitting in Sweet Dreams' renovated tea room after hours, surrounded by wedding magazines and sample menus. Through the window, I saw Second Chances lit up across the street, where Mario was handling the evening rush. Besides, I reached for my recipe book again. Grandma always said she wanted her recipes at my wedding. Grandma would want you to relax and enjoy the day, Mom said, bringing in a fresh pot of tea. Let us handle the cake. Us? April raised an eyebrow. Well, Gemma closed her laptop. I've been practicing, and with Val's recipes. No, I stood up, grabbing my apron. I'm going to show you something. I led them into the kitchen and pulled out a worn envelope from behind the spice rack. Inside was a yellowed piece of paper covered in our grandmother's handwriting. What's this? Mom asked, adjusting her reading glasses. Grandma's wedding cake recipe, the real one, not the one she gave out at church bake sales. I smoothed the paper on the counter. I found it last week while organizing her old recipe box. Mom's hand shook as she touched the paper. I remember this cake from their 50th anniversary. Look at the note at the bottom. I pointed to the faded ink. Our grandmother had written, for my Valerie, to share when she finds someone who loves her as much as her grandfather loved me, and for Gemma, When she learns that true success comes from the heart, not just the head. She knew, Gemma whispered, even back then, she knew we'd need to learn these lessons. So, I pulled out mixing bowls. Want to make Grandma's last recipe together? For the next few hours, we worked as a team. Gemma measured with precision, April took notes for future reference, and Mom shared stories about Grandma, filling the kitchen with laughter and happy tears. The cafe bell rang, and Mario walked in with Dad. Something smells amazing, Dad said, stopping short when he saw the recipe. Is that Grandma's wedding cake? Mom smiled, wiping flour from her cheek. The real one. Mario wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder to read the recipe. Your grandmother sounds like she was quite the wise woman. She was, Dad said softly, and she'd be proud of all of this, not just the bakeries, but how you girls have grown. The timer dinged, and we gathered around the oven as I pulled out the first layer. The sweet scent of vanilla and almond filled the air. It's perfect, Mom sighed. Almost, I said, reaching for the frosting bowl. Gemma, want to do the honors? My sister's eyes widened. But it's your wedding cake. And you're my sister, plus, you've got the steadier hands today. As Gemma carefully frosted the layers, Mrs. Peterson appeared at the kitchen door. I thought I smelled something familiar, she said, sniffing the air. Your grandmother used to make this for very special occasions. Would you like to be our taste tester? I offered, one last time for old time's sake. Mrs. Peterson took a bite and closed her eyes. Oh my, it's exactly as I remember. Your grandmother always said this recipe had a secret ingredient, April guessed. Love, Mrs. Peterson said, laughing. No. Patience, she added. The patience to wait for things to work out as they should. Mario squeezed my hand, like waiting for your sister to learn the true value of family recipes, or waiting for the right moment to start over. I added, watching Gemma finish the cake, or waiting for someone who understands that success isn't just about business. Gemma said, stepping back to admire her work. It's about building something meaningful together. The finished cake stood proudly on the counter, a symbol of everything we'd been through, not just a wedding cake, but a sign of healing, family coming together, and lessons learned. To Grandma, Dad raised his teacup, who knew exactly what she was doing when she passed these recipes down. To second chances, Mom added. Gemma smiled. To love. Mario kissed my flour-dusted cheek. To all of it, I said, looking around at my family, the one I was born into and the one I've chosen, gathered here in this kitchen that has seen both heartbreak and healing, because sometimes the best recipes are the ones that take time to perfect. As we shared the sample cake, I realized that success, like the perfect pastry, isn't about following a recipe exactly. It's about understanding the ingredients you have, family, love, forgiveness, and having the patience to let them come together into something beautiful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.